Hello, friends, and welcome to the Friends in Fiction show Behind the Book with four New York Times bestselling authors and endless stories. I'm Mary Kay Andrews, the author of more than 30 novels, including my latest, Summers at the Saint. On behalf of my Friends in Fiction co-founders and co-hosts, Kristin Harmel, Kristy, Woodson, Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry, I'm excited to welcome you to a special installment of the Friends in Fiction show where we take a peek behind the curtain into the world of storytelling. Now, for anybody who's not familiar with Friends in Fiction, we have a web show and podcast where we welcome incredible author guests every week. And we host an online community of devoted readers, more than 250,000 strong. In action since 2020, we pride ourselves on being the kindest corner of the internet, where the love of stories, booksellers, and librarians takes center stage, and where, once you're a member, you will never have to wonder, what should I read again next? Now I'm thrilled to sit down with Kathleen McInerney, the narrator of Summers at the Saint audiobook and of many of my novels. Kathleen is a classically trained actress and award-winning audiobook narrator who has recorded numerous titles by best-selling authors. She's performed in New York City and around the country in both classical and contemporary theater. Her credits also include television commercials, daytime drama, radio plays, and a broad range of animation voiceovers, including 8 seasons as Ash Ketchum and his mother Delia in the Pokemon anime series, which she performs under her stage name, Veronica Taylor. Kathleen, thanks so much for joining me for this chat.
Thank you so much. I am beyond thrilled to be here. I mean, I kind of feel like I talk to you all the time because I'm reading your books and I'm in your head, but I never get to see you. So this is really extraordinary. I'm here today in South Africa, actually. I'm at a Comic-Con. So behind me is where all the photos were being taken. So it looks like I'm in an office, but I'm really in just in a convention center here in Cape Town. So I'm really happy to be with you.
Oh, well, we're so happy you joined us. Kathleen, would you share with us how you got your start in audiobook narration? And what are some of your favorite projects that you voiced, whether as Kathleen McInerney or under your stage name of Veronica Taylor?
Well, I started acting when I was 5, and I did every play I could possibly do in elementary school, in high school. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Acting from college and a Master of Fine Arts of Acting from grad school. I toured the US with a bunch of acting companies. And so I kind of have all of the character work, I guess, in my bag of tricks. I started doing audiobooks after I started doing cartoons. So it all kind of fit together in that in a play, you play usually one person. In a cartoon, you play multiple, and the same within an audiobook. So I was doing Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, probably some other Saturday morning cartoons when I got my first audition for an audiobook. And that was directed by Paul Rubens in New York. Everything on a Waffle, actually. And that kind of kicked off everything for me. I would say I thought I could do it because my daughter was small and I would read to her every night before bed. So I felt like, hey, I could do this. And of course, I trained for that also. And then, gosh, here I am today. I have, I guess, my favorite projects, Pokemon, especially playing Ash Ketchum. I do a lot of video games. You know what? It's not just because we're here, but audiobook narration is my favorite. And I love it because I get to tell the whole story and weave in the characters. But really, I look at each book from the author's point of view. So I kind of like to read it as if you were reading it. And then I kind of figure out, like, get in your head and figure out how you might want the characters to be. So it's, I don't know, it's a little bit crazy, but I mean, how about you? When and where did you get your start as a writer? And you also use a pen name. So tell us more about that if you can.
Yeah, I was always a reader. And as a little kid, dreamed that someday maybe I would write stories. But then I thought, oh no, little girls in St. Petersburg, Florida don't write books. People who live in apartments in New York City write books.
Mm.
So I'll be a newspaper reporter. So I majored in journalism and started working at newspapers in Savannah and then eventually Atlanta. And I had an idea. I wanted to be home with my kids. And when I left
Mm.
newspapers when my kids were 8 and 4, I wrote my first book while I was still working full time, Every Crooked Nanny. I left
Wow.
newspapers in 91. It's coming up on my anniversary, May 5th, 1991.
Wow.
Yeah, I quit my day job.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That was a real Cinco de Mayo. You
oh, let
just
me tell you, I walked in
have
and
a
I was
cocktail and
flinging
leave it.
I walked into the office and I was flinging Hershey kisses at everybody.
Oh my gosh.
I think Hershey's kisses are way better than confetti. And so
Yeah, that's true.
my real name is Kathy Hogan Trocek, and I was switching genres sort of. I had been writing a mystery series set in Atlanta, had an idea for a different book set in Savannah, and I thought I'm going to try that under a pseudonym. So my daughter was Mary Kay, and my son is Andrew. And the other part of that equation is the fact that fiction is shelved alphabetically. And I thought, if I'm going to write under a pseudonym, I want to be up at the top of the stack. So Andrews it
Yeah.
was.
Wow. And your writing puts you at the top of the stack. I mean, you don't have Queen of the Beach read for nothing, you know?
Uh,
So you are at the top. That's so interesting. And it's amazing how our paths kind of turn and twist,
yeah,
especially because we're women. And there's a
right.
lot of things that you think you can't do, whereas men really just kind of jump into it. So I just think that's fantastic and fascinating, actually.
Yeah, I think all of us have to pivot at some point in our career and have to
Mhm.
figure out how to do what we want to do. I just was so fortunate that I had a team behind me, my spouse who had benefits.
Yeah,
That's the only way I could quit my job. And then editors and agents and it because it does actually take a village. All right, let's get
right.
back to the audiobook
Okay.
narrating.
Okay.
Kathleen, when you're approaching a new character in a book, you're narrating, how do you decide on the voice for that character? Do you have a process for creating each character's unique sound? You told me earlier that you mark up your script. You call it a script or a sheet?
I call it a script. So I open the manuscript I annotate to be really technical. And then I mark every character. And when there's a description of the character, I write it down on an actual piece of paper. So I write every character and what page they first appear on, and then anything that is said about them. And you are incredibly descriptive. So I get kind of even mannerisms about them, I write down. And then sometimes I write, well, okay, so I do that for all of the characters. So I read the whole book. And then I also know for a mystery who did it, who didn't. And so I can kind of maybe temper the bad guys so they don't sound so bad from the beginning. But then I decide who's narrating, and then I build the characters kind of around that. And sometimes you have to say who's going to have the most lines also, so you can get them in a comfortable range. Because if you have someone here, you might not want to talk like this the whole time. But here is pretty nice. So then, and if my main character's here, then my narrator might be around here so that it can shift. Oftentimes, the main female character is similar to the female narrator just because I'm a girl. But that's how I build it out. And then I mark down things and I write down every word that I need to look up. I write down all the flowers, everything to make sure that I haven't been pronouncing it wrong my whole life. And then really I dive in. Like some of the characters, you just know that they can be a little kookier than other ones, but
Right.
you don't want them to draw away from the story. It all has to serve the story and the through line. You can't just have weirdo people in there for no reason. So that's basically how I build it out. And then how do you then develop your characters? Because you have so many fantastic ones and you write so many books. So you have to kind of keep them all, I don't know, in your mind and so separated. Summers at the Saint especially has a lot of smaller kind of bit players than usual, I thought. And then you still manage to give them all their own distinct flair and personality, very distinct, I would say. How do you accomplish that as a writer?
Well, I think the first thing I try to do is to get inside the head of my main character in this book, Summers at the Saint. It's Tracy Eddings. I need to know, what her background is. Where did she come from? And where is she now? And what's influenced her? Even her name. She was born, I knew her age and I knew when she was born. So I had to look up what were some popular names. I had an idea for women born in the 80s. I guess she was born in the 80s. And her best friend is Shannon, and they have had quite a journey together. They've been lifelong friends and then estranged. So I needed to know about Shannon's background also. And then the other characters in the book, there's a frat boy, and I kind
Mm-hmm.
of knew what he looked and sounded like. And then there's a waiter who is very self-assured, and
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought I knew him. Now, Felice, the chef, as soon as I wrote her, she kept trying to take over the story
Mm-hmm.
because she's Black, and she's from Miami, and she's a strong Black woman. She's a chef, and she is not taking anything off of anybody. And I eventually had to say, all right, Felice, maybe later you can have your own book, but right now this is
Right.
this is not your book. Um, anyway, she was a lot of fun to write about. And I think I have to be in there. I can't write more than one project at a time. I know
Mm-hmm.
writers hopscotch between writing projects. I'm not able to do that. I really have to keep my head in the world of this book. And then what happens is, as soon as I turn it in, they disappear.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that in narrating a little bit too. I'm really in it. I don't like to do other books at the same time. I like to read it and record it because I keep it all in. You know what's interesting is I totally get that you write your characters that way because I felt like you were in their heads. Tracy, I thought she has a life that she and Shannon were here at one point, and then their lives went different ways, and their voices went different ways. Who Tracy is able to be in is not who Shannon is able to be. And so when they were teenagers together, they sounded more alike, but they don't any longer. And I felt like Felice, too, she had the biggest change and shift throughout the book because you can see what her past is. And when people really respect her and rely on her, her voice changed. She was not the same throughout the book because of who she was kind of becoming. So I loved that I was able to kind of live through that, which I'm really happy to hear that's how you wrote them. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
the first time that Tracy and Shannon talk, they've been estranged for like 20 years. And
Hmm.
one of the things Shannon resents about Tracy is that she's highfalutin. She's the lady of the big house now.
Hmm.
And Shannon wants to remind her, hey, I know where you came from.
That's
I know
right.
who you used
Right.
to be.
And I'm still here.
Right,
And so she's almost afraid to leave, or
right.
she doesn't know how to trust and get out. And I thought that really came out in all, I mean, my gosh, you feel like you're in the room with these people actually talking.
Well,
And
I thought I
maybe
was
I
in.
think this is, yes, but this is like every book that you write, I think it just gets better and better. And this one really, I was talking to my daughter as I was reading it, and I was like, this is the best book yet. Like
Aw.
it's so intricate and real. The people's conversations are so real. I just loved it. I
I
loved
have
it.
no objectivity over my own work. I can't judge it. I can't say whether it was good or bad. It'll take me at least a year or so. But all right. So in the meantime, who was your
Mm.
favorite character to voice in Summers at the Saint? And I have to say, I love what we did with the Colonel and how you gave him that foghorn leghorn vibe, because that's what I was imagining the whole time I was writing
It was.
him.
I think I wrote it because that's in the description kind of, but he's like,
Well,
I need a paper. Like he was so, I think of him, he's so frail and yet so demanding and out there. He was so fun. I think that was my favorite character. And he didn't have too many lines, so it's not like he overpowered anything.
Right.
But when he showed up, it was fun. And he was so annoying to them that he could be just full of himself. And then you see that he actually doesn't live that easy of a life, you know? So you
Right.
can feel for him a bit by the end, in a way.
And you do a pretty
I
good
think
dude bro frat boy too, I'd say.
Thanks a lot, Mary Kay. um, but I think I try to pull back on him too, but every now and then it drips in for all. It was so there were so many people in this book that you could really open it up. I loved that. It was definitely more than usual. Do you have a favorite character in the book?
Oh gosh, I got to know Tracy pretty well, but I enjoyed Waylon, who is this mystery man who comes into
Yeah.
the book. When things start to change in any novel, I think it's when a stranger rides into town. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I didn't know a lot about Waylon when he came to town. I just knew that he had a connection um, to the Saint Cecilia. There was a backstory to him, and so it was fun to um, explore that and figure out what he wanted and how he was going to approach what he wanted. But also, again, I had to keep him from overpowering
Mm-hmm.
Tracy because Tracy doesn't need no man coming to her rescue. She's got to rescue
No. And
herself.
well, that's what I think is also so great about all of your books, that the women they are self-sufficient. They learn to be self-sufficient and to trust themselves. And we as readers also can gain from that. And I think it's always a nice balance that you are able to strike. Waylon was really interesting. And so do you mean that when you started writing him, you didn't know where it was going to go? It just kind of came out?
No, I knew that he would come to town and that he had a quest,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that he wanted answers. And I really did not know how he was going to get the answers that he was looking for.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's sort of what keeps you on your toes is
Right.
what happens next, um, what's the story arc?
Yeah.
And you're just,
Yeah.
you're serving two purposes in any novel, especially a novel like mine, which is it's a blend of romance and mystery. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so you've got the plot and the character arc, and you're basically, you're trying to keep all the balls in the
Juggling
air.
it through. Yeah, and I do think you thread through that needle wonderfully, especially in this book, because there's always something to just keep you buoying along down the river, and it's a lovely. We can put it with those the tire those tires when you go down that rafting river
Yeah.
thing. This was quite a river of twists and turns, but we were always just buoyed on that raft in such a wonderful way. So congratulations.
Oh, thank
I
you.
can tell you it was great. It was a great ride.
I'm going to leave that up to the readers to decide. Let's talk about your
Absolutely.
challenges. Do any
Okay.
particularly memorable hurdles in your life as a narrator, not just of this book, but as a
Mm.
doing audio narration? Any challenges that come to your mind when you think about where you've started and where you've gone?
Yeah, I do think one thing is getting work, auditioning. You're always auditioning from home. Secondly, I mostly record from home. A lot of because of the lockdown, we all were really recording from home, and I often still am, which means navigating outdoor noises and then just like being home. You just do like, oh, maybe I'll take a break and make some dinner or pay a bill. At least when you're in a studio, you really focus, and that's a challenge for me. And I can't sometimes get past my own. Oh, maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I shouldn't start. But when you go to a studio, they go, "Let's go," and you just start. So I kind of need that push. Definitely losing your voice or maintaining vocal quality is really important. I do a lot of comic cons. So when I'm doing dumb voices all the time for people like, hey, nice to see you, it's not the best in a vocally hygienic way. So I have to really watch how I'm talking and try to keep my voice the same so it can be maintained throughout a book. Um, I think those are the biggest things. I usually just try to hum. I do vocal warm-ups before I start. I yeah, I just try to coconut water, avocado. Those are
Right,
really
I was gonna
good
ask you if
to
you have
keep.
a magic elixir.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I am drinking this Aquabella, which is Italian South African water, I suppose. But definitely drinking a lot of water. Watermelon, avocado, coconut water, all of that kind of hydrates you inside and out in a way. And those things are Manuka honey. I have a big store of that. And then you just try to breathe. Breathing is the hardest part. I mean, even when we're normally talking, we don't fully breathe.
right.
So those are my main things. I try not to do dumb things like screaming at a soccer match or something. Just, I don't know, take care of myself.
Now
What about
there
you?
are there any accents that you find particularly hard to pull off?
I do have to practice beforehand. I'm pretty good with accents, but there are some that I have to look up and really go over. I'm not the best at Jamaican or Indian. I'm not that great at South African yet, but I'm working on it. I'm much better with Australian, New Zealand, Irish, English, or British, I should say, that kind of stuff. Things that I use all the time, but I like to kind of key into it. So I will work on an accent if I need it.
All right,
But
now
it's
you have me fascinated. What's the difference between an Australian and a New Zealand accent? Can you
yeah,
even
some is
quantify?
like if you in well, this isn't going to be exact, so don't take me to the mat on this one. But um, if you in New Zealand, you might have fish and chips. You might go there and have that, and then but in Australia, you got a much flatter thing going on. It's here, and you can kind of fake it and say, yeah, this is New Zealand, but it's not. Sweet as you got. It's a bit gruffer if you're in there, and then it drops down a bit if you're in New Zealand. So it's kind of you can fake it a bit because most of the people who you're doing the accent for don't know what it sounds like. But when you're doing it in that country, you have to be very, very careful.
Everybody can't sound like Crocodile Dundee, in other words.
No, you can't. You gotta go. Let's go in there. But it is fun to do that, and we do a lot of accents at home. Really goof around a lot. I don't know. But what is it that drives you? I mean, you have done more than 30 novels.
Yeah.
What is your daily routines, or do you have rituals that you do? And do you ever reward yourself? I know you like to have a glass of wine in a picture,
Yeah.
but is there anything that keeps you on track and kind of keeps you motivated?
Yeah, well, for one thing, I write to contract. So I'm not writing on spec anymore. My first book, actually I never really did write on spec. I got my first book purchased. I wrote 5 chapters and they bought it. And then I finished it and handed it in. I think what keeps me going is this is my self-esteem. My sense of self
Mm.
is as a writer. And if I don't write, I feel worthless. I tell people sometimes I'm constipated with book. I have to, I can hem
Oh.
and haw and procrastinate all day long. So when I'm writing, I try to start, and all of this changed during the pandemic. So much of us changed. I
Mm-hmm.
would put my laptop beside my bed before I went to sleep at night. In the morning, I'd get up and start writing, really attacking the book at 7 a.m. And I was on a
Oh, wow.
text chain with the other friends and fiction ladies. And I was basically the taskmaster saying, who's writing? What's your goal today? I give myself a goal of about 2,000 words on a good writing day. I don't always make it. And I
Mm.
have all kinds of stupid little rituals. Like I don't name a chapter until I've written 500 words. So if I'm
Oh.
inclined to stop or quit or give up, I have to say, no, you can't give up because you have to write 500 words. And then you can name it and then you can, store it and save it. But I need to get that first 500 words down. And then to reward myself, I think it's what everybody else rewards themselves with, wine and chocolate.
Yeah, that's true. I
Or a
kind of I would have to go with like fruit or something because wine and chocolate is so bad for your throat.
yeah, I
But
mean,
I do like a nice glass of wine every now and then.
yeah, lunch with a friend. Sometimes I'll
Hmm.
say, the writing life is a very isolating life. Um, and so I'll say to myself, okay, now you're going to call so and so, and maybe the two of you will go out for lunch, or maybe you take a
Hmm.
walk together. But I have to make myself do that. Otherwise, I just get, uh, I get sucked into the work, and I look up and it's 6 o'clock.
Right, right. I try to do 100 pages or 120 pages each session so that you kind of map it out. And then if I'm really rolling along, depending on the book, it's about 20 pages an hour if you're
Wow,
really
that's a
cooking.
lot.
Yeah, or it's like 15 to 20 an hour. If it depends on the book. Some books the print is really small, so you can't do that. But you feel like you've got a good pace, not to be rushing it, but that you're moving it through and you're not just taking too long of a break or you're just not, because when you're narrating, you still have to kind of move the pace so that you're bringing the reader with you. If
Right.
they're running, you're running. And otherwise, if it's more descriptive, you can kind of breeze through it. So I'm kind of moving it. Similarly, I think it sounds like to how you're writing it. Sometimes you're just furiously going, and other times you're thinking and forming it.
And lots of times you're really up against a hard deadline.
Yes,
Mostly, unfortunately for me, because I blow my deadlines, then you don't get an edited manuscript, right? Until really
that's right.
perilously close to
When it's due.
release time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also I do glance over if I get kind of a first draft, but
Yeah.
I don't really start working on it until I have the final because I have to mark it all up. And so you can't mark one and then remark the next. So sometimes I just wait and then I just dive in and then
Mm,
just go days reading and then recording. So it's good, but then you can concentrate better, I
yeah.
think.
So how often do you interact with the authors of the books you're narrating, if at all? Now, we met in person once when I was in Rehoboth Beach, right?
Rehoboth. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Rehoboth. Which is right near where my family we go for a vacation every year.
Yeah.
And that area was mentioned in one of your books
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So that was so fun. We actually got to sit and have dinner, which is amazing. I rarely meet any authors that I narrate for. I have spoken to some on the phone to ask about maybe
Mhm.
pronunciations. I sometimes Judy Bloom was in the studio when I recorded one or two of her books. Actually, she came in, but that's quite rare. Actually, that's it. That's the unicorn of authors
Wow.
in the studio for me. But otherwise, you're the one that I really know the most. I record for you and Linda Castillo, and you're the ones that I've talked to throughout the years intermittently.
Are there
So
any
it was really,
go ahead.
yeah. Oh no, it's just really interesting because I like kind of knowing you in that way because I feel like I can narrate for you better in a
Now
sense.
you know everything I know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it is pretty cool though. I think they like to keep us separate, but I like it when we can at least, or I can at least tell you how great I thought the book was. That's
Oh,
important to me.
and I can tell you how much people love the audiobook narration. I mean, we posted something fun on my social
Yes.
media
Yeah.
recently, and people went wild for it. And of
Oh
course, I
yeah.
think they were asking so many questions. And I think they thought I knew some of the answers to those things. And I just wanted to say, folks, I got nothing.
Yeah.
She's the genius behind the audiobook stuff.
Yeah. We're a team that way. We
Yeah,
can take
yeah,
our own questions. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. So do you listen to audiobooks then, or do you
yeah.
listen
Oh,
to
yeah.
your own books? You wouldn't
I
listen to your
don't
own.
listen to my own.
No, I
It's
wouldn't think so.
yeah, no,
I
Not
know.
because
I wouldn't think you could.
yeah, no, it's
No,
too
but
close.
Yeah, the same. I don't listen to a lot of my own stuff, although I do to kind of just hear how it turned out, but I don't listen to a whole book back for sure.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
listen on Book Tour. Meg, my marketing director, and who's
yes.
also the marketing director for Friends and Fiction. She's my roadie
Mhm.
on tour. So we pick out a book to listen to ahead of time. And those books are really they stay in my mind. So we listened to The Last Thing He Told Me, the Laura Dave novel,
Mhm.
2 or 3 years
Yeah,
ago. And then we listened to the Boys, which was the Ron Howard memoir that he did, and Ron
right.
Howard narrates it with his younger brother. Um,
Right.
what else?
Must be really great.
Oh, yeah.
That must
And
have been great.
then we've already picked out the audiobook we're gonna listen to this time. But yeah, I love to. When I go down to Tybee Island where we have a second home, that's a 4 hour mind-numbing drive. So I usually
Mm.
listen to an audiobook on the way down there. And
Yeah.
yeah, I had, it's a great way to envision a story without seeing the words. And I think,
Yes.
let me ask you this, Kathleen, because there's this controversy raging on social media about an audiobook is not reading a book. And I can't
Oh,
fathom that people think that you lose points for listening to it instead of reading
right.
the printed page.
I think that for younger kids, I always say, why don't you get the book and listen as you read along? Because it also helps you to do your own reading out loud. If you can hear how someone read it, it helps you give your reports in class, you know? But you reading is experiencing. So you go on a journey, whether you're on the page. I mean, there's nothing like holding an actual book that you can't put down and you're reading along at your own pace and it's getting dark and you're just trying to find the light. And that is an incredible experience. But when you're in the car and you're listening to a book and you stop and you can't get out of the car because you've got to finish the chapter, that's part of the experience of it. So I disagree that it's cheating. I think it's just experiencing it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, and
And
how
well,
fortunate
you
are we to have that?
to have both options. Yeah, and there's so many more great audiobooks now. And even Audiophile does all the reviews. So if you don't know what to get, you can go there and find it. I mean, Macmillan has so many audiobooks that you can just find within their roster. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and libraries now have Libby, I think it is, that you
Hmm.
can download audiobooks onto
Yeah.
your phone or whatever device you have. So I just it's mind numbing to me that anybody wants to detract
Yeah, I think so too.
listening to an audiobook. There's no point subtracted. It doesn't go on your permanent personal record, does it,
That's
Kathleen?
right. No, it doesn't. But I mean, get your nose in a book or get your ears in a book. It doesn't matter. Just get in the book.
Yeah,
Read, listen. Yeah,
yeah,
it's really important. Books transport you and to make you better people.
they do. And especially if you read a classic, I can remember years
Hmm.
ago, we took a car trip to St. Pete, Florida, where my husband and I are from. And I got out of the library the what's the word? The unabridged,
Unabridged? Yeah,
the
yeah.
unabridged BBC version of Treasure Island. And
Oh.
that language today to children might be a little challenging, but
Hmm.
those kids could not get out of the car. They were swept away
Yeah,
and
yeah.
totally in the world of that story. And I think if you can, however, you can introduce people to books, especially classics, then you have a win-win.
I think, and also because you're only envisioning it. I think cheating is watching the movie, because it's all done for you. But
Right.
you connect with your imagination, whether you're reading it or listening to it, and then the world is yours. And then you create what they look like and sound like and feel like. So, yeah, I think get the book, read it, listen. That's it. That's what you have to do.
Okay. Now, Kathleen, tell our audience out there, now that they have fallen in love with your mad skills as a narrator, where else can they hear you read to them?
Well, everything that I do is pretty much on Audible or Libro FM, and Libro FM is a great way to buy an audiobook because you can have the money go to your favorite independent bookstore. So
Right.
you can find a ton of things that I have done there. I'm on cartoons and video games and all kinds of things all over the place. So you can I read a lot of books for little kids also, which I love. I do Mango languages. So I'm the American teacher who teaches you foreign languages. So I do that. I do a lot of crazy, weird voice things, but I'm always doing an audiobook somewhere. And now, like here, I have my whole mic set up here. And I can record something from here too. Not necessarily this room, it's a little echoey. But if I put some pillows around and some blankets, I could record a book here too. What about for you? How do people connect with you online?
They can find me at Mary Kay Andrews. I'm on Instagram. I am on Facebook. I'm on TikTok, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah. I have to find
Um,
you there. I didn't realize
yeah,
that.
yeah, I'm not good at it. I'm, trying to figure it out. And I think my favorite is Instagram because I'm such a visual person. Uh,
Hmm.
and and people can connect with you online too, right?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, all as the Veronica T. And I'm kind of on Facebook, but not really for Veronica Taylor. And then I actually have a podcast with my daughter called The Trainer's Guide, and it's a rewatch of the first season of Pokemon that you can't legally show the cartoon, so you watch it, we'll watch it, and then we just talk about it. We have guests on, we ask people to send in their favorite memories, and we
Oh,
play them or read them at the end of the episode. So, yeah, I'm all over the place, and I'm traveling for conventions so people can meet me everywhere. And I often have audiobook listeners who come to see me at a convention too.
right. And
So,
you said you're going to be in San Diego soon. Do you want to tell everybody where you're going to be and how they could
um,
come see
yeah,
you?
well, right now I'm in Cape Town in South Africa, and in about 2 weeks I'll be in San Antonio, Texas, and
Right.
then 2 weeks after that I'll be in Manila, and then Auckland. So you can see me in those countries, but otherwise I put my whole schedule for conventions
Perfect.
on my social media. It's always changing, but I have almost every weekend I'm somewhere. And then I'm home recording in between. It's crazy. So
Well,
actually, I'll
Kathleen,
be close to you. I'll be in Atlanta at some point. So I'll let you
oh,
know.
yeah,
I
reach
will.
out.
I'll let you
Definitely.
know.
We'll have some
I will.
delightful spring water and fruit.
Sounds good. Yes. Well, if I'm not recording, I'll bring the wine.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me,
Oh
Kathleen.
my
This
gosh.
was so much fun. And now, for all of you
Amazing.
out there tuning in for this interview, don't forget to join us every Wednesday night on the Friends in Fiction Facebook group page or YouTube channel, where we host a different author guest every week, or listen every Friday on our podcast, available on all major podcasting platforms. You can find out everything Friends in Fiction, from our show, podcasts, social media, and newsletter to our in person events, merch shop, and book club, all on our website at friendsinfiction.com. Thanks for tuning in, and happy reading and happy listening.
Thank you. Thanks so much.